Hello, I'm Hani Bushra. I'm an immigration attorney based in Huntington Beach, California, with a practice nationwide in immigration law. I'm here to discuss with you the options for you if you have won the diversity visa lottery, if you weren't declared one of the winners, and you had a pending asylum case, whether you're eligible to get your green card through the diversity visa lottery inside the United States or you have to travel outside of the United States. This video is specifically for people who have a pending asylum application before USCIS, before immigration as they call it, not before the immigration court. Okay, so I just want to clarify that this video does not apply for you if you had an interview with USCIS and your case was referred to immigration court. I want to also clarify that if you were ever in immigration court and then your case was terminated and then sent back to USCIS, this also video does not apply for you. Basically, this video applies for people who entered with a tourist visa and applied for asylum before the tourist visa authorized stay ended, which is usually 6 months, but it could be less than that. So they applied for their asylum before those 6 months have ended and have a pending asylum case that could have been pending for a number of years. So this video is made specifically for people who came in with a visa and applied for asylum immediately or before the 6-month stay or the authorized stay was expired, okay, and have a pending asylum. So what is exactly the problem in you winning the lottery here in the United States and getting your green card through the lottery here in the United States? The problem is that for anybody who's not an immediate relative of a U.S. citizen, an immediate relative is somebody who is the spouse of a U.S. citizen, somebody who are children under the age of 21 for a U.S. citizen, or parents of a U.S. citizen, anybody who's not in those three categories. To get your green card based on an adjustment of status, which is the process of getting the green card here inside the United States, versus consular processing, which is to go outside and get your green card from the embassy, the United States Embassy in your home country. To do that, you have to be in something called lawful status. Lawful status is actually a status that you have, not only a permission to stay here legally in the United States. So for people who have a pending asylum application, who have applied for asylum before their B1, B2 status, the tourist visa status ended, for people who did that, okay, and the B1, B2 status ended, they are considered to be an authorized stay. They are not in lawful status. They have not gained a status. Who is considered to be in lawful status? People who are, for example, on a student visa and the student visa is still active and he's still studying. People who are on H-1B visa, for example, and working for an employer. People who are, for example, on an L1, L2 visa, people who are on E2 visa, investment visas, those are considered to be in a lawful status. And these people, if they win the lottery here in the United States, they're eligible to adjust status from the lawful status they have, the student visa, regardless or whatever they have, into a green card based on the lottery they won. Now, because the law, when it was written, or the regulations when they were done, did not foresee that people will be in the asylum system for so many years waiting for interviews, okay, it's not clear whether being in an asylum case, whether having a pending asylum application before USCIS that is delayed because USCIS is unable to give you an interview because because of the backlog. Now, it's not clear whether this by itself could excuse the fact that you are not in lawful status when you apply for a green card based on the diversity lottery and you have a pending asylum matter. So what I'm saying is this: when the law was written or the regulations were done, it was not foreseeable that people are going to take so many years to get an asylum interview. In fact, the reason you get your work permit after 6 months when you apply for asylum is because the law foresaw or thought that asylum interviews and applications will be done in 6 months. 6 months was considered a very long time, okay? And so because of that, they said apply for a work permit after 6 months. But because now we're taking years, 6-7 years until you get an interview, the law never thought about this scenario. And so there's a gap in understanding the law. Now, there has been some interpretation that I have employed in the previous years for a lot of my clients who had won the diversity visa lottery and other options of immigration, while they had a pending asylum, there has been interpretation to say that because the delay is from USCIS in giving them an asylum interview, okay, that delay should not be counted against the applicant, and you should not consider them not to be in lawful status. Okay, therefore they're able to adjust status and get the green card based on the lottery that they won. Now, this interpretation has been pushed against recently in the last 2 years. Just to give you an example, I've won this interpretation in USCIS offices in all through California. For example, in Los Angeles, San Diego, Fresno, San Francisco, San Bernardino. All these offices have agreed with me in this interpretation of the law. I've won them outside of California. I've won them in Seattle, in Chicago, in Texas, Atlanta. I've won it in Virginia. I've won it in Chicago. I think I mentioned Chicago. I won it in New Jersey. So all over the United States. Now, in the last 2 years, there has been a pushback from some USCIS offices that says, we're not going to take this interpretation. Whether you are in lawful status or not does not matter, okay? It does not depend on whether USCIS gave you an asylum interview or not. And so the first pushback I saw was from the Virginia office, from the Fairfax office. And that was about 2 years ago. And they denied the case for somebody there that basically had applied for asylum when they were, their tourist visa was not expired yet, or tourist authorized stay was not expired yet. Okay. And then they got interviewed and they said, we're not going to give you this interpretation. Now, last year I've had successfully people who were able to adjust status based on this interpretation. It's called the matter of LK if you want to look it up. Okay, so you might end up, if you have a lottery, you won the lottery and you're going to apply for an adjustment status, you might end up with an officer, okay, who's going to come back and say, you know what, I am sorry, I'm not going to interpret the law in your favor, and therefore I'm going to deny your case. Now, there are other considerations that you need to keep in mind. You need to also understand that the number you won with the lottery, which is the case number that you have, determines when that visa or that green card is available for you and when you can apply for an adjustment of status based on that green card. What do I mean by that? Let's say you are from Europe, okay? Your diversity visa number is 18,000, for example. And that tells me that there are more than there's people with lesser number for you who are eligible to apply for the diversity visa green card before you. There's about 17,999 persons, okay? Now, if you are in the United States and you have a pending asylum, you're waiting for your asylum interview and you won the lottery and you have the 18,000 number, I have to wait until the 18,000 is available on the visa bulletin before I can even submit the application for your green card based on or adjustment of status of green card based on the lottery you won. Which means what? Europe, for example. Europe this year is not going to achieve the 18,000 until the month of May. So if, for example, next year, same thing happens. 18,000 is not going to be reached until the month of May. I am not able to apply for your green card application, the 485 application, until the month of May. Does it make a difference? Yes, it makes a difference. Why does it make a difference? It makes a difference because your application has to be adjudicated, has to be approved. You have to have an interview before September 30th. So let's say you applied on May 1st when you're eligible. Everything has to be done in 4 months. Okay. Now, USCIS has been really good in the last 2 years in giving priority for people who have diversity lottery to get their interviews quickly. I had people last year that I applied for in late August, early September, okay? And what happened with them was that USCIS gave them an interview, okay? But keep in mind that for next year, 2025, we might have a new administration in power. And if the new administration is led by President Trump at that point, that administration, you can be assured, will make things very slow. And there's a big chance they would not give a priority for people who have a high number of winning, the 18,000, for example, and then have to apply. There's not going to be a guarantee that you're going to be able to get your interview and your case approved before September 30th. Remember, the lottery has to be approved. Your visa from the lottery has to be approved before September 30th. Why September 30th? Because it's called the fiscal year. It's the year by which the government counts the visas. It's from October 1st to September 30th of each year. Okay? So if you end up not getting it because you not getting an interview date, okay, and not going in for an interview because they have not scheduled you, you end up losing all the money that you submitted for something like that. Now, also another issue that happened last year was that there were people who were scheduled, and this happened with me personally. There were people who were scheduled for a lottery interview or a green card based on lottery interview in the last week of September. And then around September 20th, I got a phone call. I remember it very vividly because I had an interview the next day. This was on a Thursday. And I had an interview for somebody on a Friday, and I had an interview for somebody on Monday. And they called us from USCIS and said the interview is canceled because all the visas that were available for people to get have been taken. What do you mean all the visas have been taken? It means simply that because the lottery, when people are selected for the lottery, they choose more than the 50,000 that are available, because they have to take into account that some people might not qualify. That last year, before they reached September 30th, all the visas were taken, and so a lot of people ended up, okay, who had interviews in the last week for an adjustment of status here in the United States, ended up having their interviews canceled. Also, there were some people who were overseas that ended up having their interviews canceled. Now, this also would mean that you would not get refund on the money that you paid. Now, speaking of the costs, you have to take into that consideration as whether you're gonna, in thinking whether you're gonna apply for the lottery based adjustment or not. So, green card fees have gone up. In April 1st of 2024, your fee for to apply for a green card is $14.40. There's no fee waiver for that if you're doing lottery based adjustment. Okay. So that's $14.40 per person. You have to pay something called the DOS, or the Department of State lottery fee, which is another $330. You have to do a medical exam, which is about $300. The total comes out to about $2,070, okay, per person. That's quick math, or $2,100 per person. If you have a family of four, that's almost $8,280, okay, for a family of four. Remember, you're going to pay all this fee not knowing if you end up with an officer who's going to interpret the law in your favor or not interpret the law in your favor. Okay, if you end up with an officer who does not interpret the law in your favor, you've lost all these fees. Of course, there's additional fees for your attorney, for the work they're going to be doing and attending the interview with you, and so that's going to be additional fee. Okay, so what should be done? Should we just not apply for an adjustment status based on lottery? What should I do? I want to discuss a couple of strategies here, but again, I just want to emphasize that these strategies are just for your information. Please do talk to your attorney about this so you can get more information from your attorney about this. The first strategy that I would tell you to think about is it worth it to apply to close your asylum case and go back to your country and get your interview back home in the embassy for consular processing, and get your green card visa, immigrant visa, and come to the United States from the embassy. Now, has that happened with some of my clients? Yes, it has happened to some of my clients. Okay, but to do that, I would recommend a couple of things. Number one, okay, you have to make sure that your passport has a validity of more than 6 months in it. Number two, you have to make sure that your winning number in the lottery is a low number so you can make sure that they don't run out of the visas. And number three, you have to make sure that when you did the entry for the lottery, there isn't a single mistake in your entry. One of the things that we've seen in the last couple of years is that people have been denied their lottery visas. Okay, everything is fine in their case because they've used an old photo. They've used a photo that they applied with previously. The consulate was able to match the photo, and when they were able to match the photo, they figured out that this person used the same photo that they used the year before, and the requirements in the visa lottery application say that you have to use a recent photo. So you got to make sure that everything in your entry was correct. You did not miss a child, you did not put a date something wrong, you didn't put anything like that. And there's always a risk when you travel and you go and you leave your asylum case, close your asylum case, and go back home to your home country. There's a risk that the embassy will be vindictive towards you and end up somehow finding a reason to deny your case. Has it happened to me where people were successful? Yes, it has happened. I had a client that went to France last year and was able to do it. Okay. But it's not the strategy that I would recommend the most. like I said, embassies could be vindictive against you. You can try to move your case to a different embassy, but it's something that's hard. And remember, you have a time frame that has to happen quickly, where the new embassy has to accept taking your case from your home country embassy, and then at the same time, everything has to be done before the September 30th deadline that we have. The other option that I want you to think about is that if you have a very strong asylum case, think about filing a writ of mandamus, and you've been pending for more than 5 years. Think about filing a writ of mandamus. The writ of mandamus is a lawsuit that is filed for delayed asylum cases. Again, this is cases before USCIS, where you are saying to the government, you've delayed me in such an unreasonable way, set an interview for me. I have been successful in getting a lot of interviews based on writ of mandamus. Okay, and the magic number that we look at is 5 years. This is the number where we don't get a pushback or a fight from the government, and we get asylum interviews scheduled for the people. Okay. The other thing that another strategy that I would like to talk to you about or think about is maybe you can minimize the financial damage a little bit. How? So let's say you're a family. Instead of having the whole family apply for an adjustment of status based on the lottery that they won, we only have the winner apply. And the idea is that if they go in and do, for example, an interview in January of the fiscal year, and they get approved, they end up with an officer who's going to interpret the law in their favor. And they end up with an officer that does that, and they get the green card, they can quickly turn around and have their family apply for an adjustment of status based on the lottery that they won. Okay, as long as everything is done for the additional family members before September 30th. Okay, they go in and they get interviewed, the family members, and they can argue and say, "Hey, you did it for my dad, you did it for my spouse." You accepted their argument that they are considered to be in lawful status. Okay, even though they have pending asylum for so many years, do the same to us. So that way you can minimize the financial damage. One of you gets approved, then the rest could get approved if everything is done before September 30th for the rest of the family. And if it's not, I mean, if you end up, for example, getting your interview and everything, let's say in late August of the fiscal year, and there's not enough time to apply for the rest of your family members, you can try using your green card to apply for them. Now, they're going to run into the same problem, which is to interpret the law. Are they in lawful status or are they in authorized stay? There's going to be a debate, but you might be able to get a sympathetic officer who says, hey, the law was interpreted in your favor that you were considered in lawful status. Let's interpret it for your kids or for your family the same way. Okay. If that doesn't work for your family members later on, then you'll have to wait until you become a U.S. citizen, and then you can apply for your family members if it's your wife or your spouse, for example, or if your children are under the age of 21. I know this video is a little bit long, but I wanted to discuss with you some of the strategies, some of the issues that came up with this very unique issue, and I hope that we can be of service to you. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact our office. Like I said, we practice immigration law nationwide all over the United States. Thank you for listening.